Coming up next on Magical Medical Tour with my co-host, Dr. Glenn Woolman, and special guest, Shulamit Lando, a body-mind psychotherapist, bereavement counselor, trauma specialist, medical coach, and author. Join us as we learn her amazing experience from multiple sclerosis and how she now supports others in their healing. This and more coming up next on Magical Medical Tour. This week's episode is brought to you by Support the Mountains Herbal Parasite Cleanse. This formula targets the small and large intestinal tracts and larvae, the most broad-spectrum formula available today. 100% organic, formulated by Dr. Mikio Sankey, author of the Esoteric Acupuncture series. For 10% off your first bottle, visit shopyogahub.com and use the coupon code CLEANSE at checkout. Hello and welcome to YHTV's Magical Medical Tour. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Christina Suzama, and with me is our wonderful medical guide, Dr. Glenn Woolman. Hello, Doc.
Greetings, Christina, and greetings, everyone. Welcome to Magical Medical Tour. I am Dr. Glenn Woolman. I will be your medical guide today, along with Christina, as we travel through the healthcare galaxy in search of optimal health. Today we have a special guest, Shulamit Lando, a body-mind psychotherapist, a bereavement counselor, trauma specialist, medical coach, and new author. Mm-hmm. But before we meet with Shuli, Christina, how do people get in touch with us?
Great, thank you. At any time during the show, you can feel free to ask a question or make a comment simply by scrolling down on your screen and typing it into the comment box. Now, you can do this at any time. Even if the show is a year old, it doesn't matter. You can do this at any time, and we'll be sure to get your comment or question to our special guest or to Dr. Woolman and send you a reply. Now, if you're listening to this as a podcast, just pick up the phone and feel free to call us at 818-LETS-TALK. 818-LETS-TALK. Thank you so much.
Very good. So, introducing our guest today, she's a very special guest. And as most of you know, when we are on Magical Medical Tour, we usually interview healers. But every once in a while, we have a magical show where we introduce and interview someone who has had some kind of a magical healing, and that's what we have today. Shulamit Lando was diagnosed with a devastating disease and has overcome it and done great things, and that's what we're going to find out today. We're going to be on her journey. So welcome, Shuli.
Welcome. Thank you for having me here, and welcome everybody.
Well, thank you for honoring our community.
I'm going to say welcome in Spanish now because I am from Mexico. Bienvenidos ¿cómo se dice? Al Tour Médico Mágico. Y ahora en hebreo porque estoy en Jerusalén. Brujim Abaim, la Siura Refugia Kasum. Okay, ya. That's it.
Beautiful.
You know, that got
for an introduction.
Really happy. I love that. But you're talking to us. You're in Israel now, correct?
I'm in Jerusalem now. Yes.
You're in Jerusalem. So how about giving a greeting in Hebrew?
But didn't I say that? I said that. I said,
oh, you did? I thought it was
Habaim. No, that was Spanish, Dr. Glenn. In Spanish, bienvenidos al Tour Mágico Médico. In Hebrew, Bruchim Abaim, la Siura Refugia Kasum. Okay?
I like that.
I gave you the welcome.
That's a great one. And we hope all of our friends that speak Spanish and speak Hebrew will enjoy this today. So, Shuli,
yes.
As the medical guide, I like to always tell our guests the path we're going to take. And we're going to follow you on your journey from childhood to being diagnosed with a very special disease and how you worked your way through it and where you are today. We're going to talk about your book and some of the work that you do. Is that all right with you?
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Excellent. So I want to take you. You said you were born in Mexico.
Mexico City. Mexico City.
Mexico. And
Mexico.
How old were you when you started having your first symptoms?
I was 27.
You were 27, so you were already into some kind of a career or working on a career. What were you doing at that time?
I was an actress. I was an actress. Because I was an actress, I was a singer and a songwriter and an actress, and I felt very special. That's not true, but I was on the stages. Let's call it that way.
Oh, that's
I
very
had
interesting.
nothing to do with anything that I do now.
Okay. So life was going pretty well for you. You had family, married, living with your family. What was going on, just in general?
I had married for about 10 minutes, like a couple of years or something. I don't count that very much. I hope he doesn't hear me and gets offended. But, like for about 10 minutes, I was married when I was very young. And then I was just being an actress and living on my own by
Was
then.
that stage? Was that stage or screen? Or both?
I did both. I did both. I was doing stage by the stage in which I got the symptoms. I was on the theater.
Okay.
But I did both. Yeah.
So tell us, what were the first, and you were relatively healthy all your life, no real problems?
Yeah, actually very healthy.
Having a great life, and then suddenly, do you remember your very first symptom?
Oh, yeah. The very, very first symptom, I was in New York with my best friend, having the time of my life, And the first symptom was I woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. And when I moved, like I was going to get up, I felt like an electrical shock going down from my neck all the way down to my feet and up. Like zoom, like that, like a cramp, like a really very strong, weird thing that I've never felt before. I didn't think anything about it, got up, went to the bathroom, came back to sleep, and that was it. And the next day, after I had a shower, and when I was drying myself, I started feeling something weird in my skin, then it became completely numb. So now I know that it was like it was just feeling different. I wasn't feeling my skin the way I know to feel my skin. So that was like the very beginning of it, very, very beginning of it. Then it became numb and everything else.
And did you do anything about it then? You're in New York, or did you just put it off because it went away for a while?
First of all, I didn't even think about anything. That's the next day, I was having a very strange headache. Like I was having something bite me in the back of my neck, in the back of my skull. Like it would bite me, it will pull my head this way, and it will leave me alone. And then again, like that. Very strange. It was a headache, but it was just like a momentary headache, and it went away. And I had that through the whole day. This was the second day after that electrical thing. And then from then on, slowly, I started getting everything I felt different from my chin down.
In terms of sensory, touching, things like that?
Yes, sensory needles, pins and needles. My hands were like this at the end of that week, like this. My feet also completely scrunched.
And how did you deal with it at that time? Did you go see a doctor, or did you just put it off, or take an aspirin, or what?
At that point, I was in New York, remember? So I came back to Mexico, and I was very weak by then. And my mother was very connected to the medical world then. And she said, when she saw me, that I couldn't open my pants because my hands were like this, she said immediately to the neurologist. So she took me to the first neurologist.
Okay. And that was a good choice on your mother's part.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I wasn't diagnosed anyway. It was like, okay, this looks like a brain tumor. Maybe we're gonna, let's go see what's in there, and maybe I'll take out the tumor and I'll save you from paralysis. But he didn't find any tumor. Yeah.
So they did a scan on you?
They did a scan. There wasn't MRIs then.
Right.
They didn't find anything.
Okay, so
this is 82.
They told you at that time, you don't have anything, don't worry about it, you're fine?
No, No, they didn't tell me that. They told me, let us make more tests and more tests and more tests. And I did not want to go through any more tests because only starting to talk about it closes my throat. I want to cry. I was so freaked out. I didn't want any more tests. They didn't know anything, so bye-bye. And I just went home. And I went through a couple of months of an MS attack. But that I knew 5 years later. No, they didn't know what it was.
So it took you just said 5 years later they found it?
5 years later, I had the next. It went away for 5 years. I had nothing for 5 years.
Okay.
For 4 years and a half. Then I had another one. All the symptoms went away.
Okay.
After a month or two. Then, about 4 years and a half later, I had a very strange one, a short one that I didn't tell anybody. It was half of my body was tingly, like again I lost sensation, and half of my body for about 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks after that, this one woke up and the other side went numb. But I could still, because it was only half a body, I could still drive and I could still have a normal life. So I think that I told my friend, and that's all. I never told my mother, and I never told anybody. And after that one, that's when I got the really, really strong one. And that's when I was diagnosed. By then, there was MRI. No, there wasn't MRI anyway. But the doctor was a specialist in MS. And he said, with just what I told him from the 2 episodes before, he right away said, this is MS.
And when you're saying MS, you mean?
Multiple sclerosis.
Right. Christina, you've heard of that, right?
Oh, yes. And I've had many individuals in my lifetime that have come down with MS.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, from dancers, actors. Our mailman came down with MS many years ago when I was young. I could remember going, what's that? You know, so yes.
So let's talk about MS for a moment, and then I want to get back to how you felt with that diagnosis. Actually, why don't you tell us that for a second? When you got diagnosed with MS, multiple sclerosis, did you have any idea what it was, or it was just a name, or you knew?
Did I know? I don't think that I knew. He right away said, this is incurable. You're going to get worse and worse. This is debilitating. He just gave me the whole, list of horrible things that were going to happen to me. And then I had the weirdest response, even though I understand it because I can think about it. But it was very strange because before I even said anything, I turned to my mother who was there freaking out. And I said to my mother, I forbid you to tell anybody, not a girlfriend. You can tell your shrink, you can tell your best friend, and that's it. I don't want you to talk about this to anybody. Like I felt very threatened about her talking to everybody on the phone. I could imagine her talking on the phone and saying, oh, my daughter this, my daughter that. I couldn't imagine everybody talking about me, about these things. I just couldn't.
And did you even know what it was at that time? I mean, aside from knowing what the symptoms were, what were your thoughts about that?
I was scared. I was very rebellious. I was very rebellious, meaning I don't have to believe this guy. I would think, what does he know? There's so much out there. What does he know? He just knows that he can't help me. That's all he knows.
So did you... Go ahead.
No. What were you going to ask?
I was going to ask for you to describe your impression now. At this time, you're in your early 30s, right?
Yeah, 32.
Right. So you immediately probably went out and started looking at multiple sclerosis, trying to learn a little bit about it. Did you do that?
Of course. Okay, I went and educated myself. Yeah.
So tell us how you educated yourself and describe multiple sclerosis for us.
Well, there's four different styles. The one I have is the one that is called relapsing, remitting. It comes and goes. It comes and goes. And it's the first, what they said, or whatever I read said was, people start with that and then they become worse, and then they go to a different stage of it. And that never happened to me, thank God, which would be, I don't remember the names now, but is the one in which you have an attack and then you get out, the body gets out of the attack, but it leaves a lesion. So you always, limp, or you always, whatever, you always have some kind of symptom that stays from the last attack until they just become more and more debilitated. And that is what never happened to me, thank God. But it could have. I mean, yes. I knew in my head that it could have very easily go there. That was like the next step. And every doctor that I saw described that as the next step.
So that was going to happen. Basically, just to let everyone know, multiple sclerosis comes from the word multiple, meaning many, and scleros, and that has to do with scarring. And so there were multiple scars. And what happens is, in the central nervous system, you have gray matter and white matter, where the gray matter are the actual nerve cells and the brain cells, and the white matter are the neurons and the axons, where the transmission of messages, be it sensory or motor, travel from one nerve cell to another nerve cell through these wires, so to speak. And these wires have an insulation around them called myelin. It's a sheath. It's a fatty tissue sheath. And just like with an electrical wire that has its own insulation, if part of that insulation gets destroyed for some reason and the wire is exposed, you may start getting static. And if the wire gets damaged, it stops working. So the same thing in the nervous system. If the nerves get damaged because the sheath covering and protecting them gets damaged, then whatever area of the body and whatever function of that nerve, you can lose either a sensation, you can lose vision, you can lose the ability to swallow, walking, sensations like touch and feel, and anywhere in the nervous system where these myelin sheaths can get destroyed, the process happens and you get a symptom in that area. And it goes through, there are, as Shuli said, there are different types. There's progressive, there's relapsing, there's intermittent. And a lot of times when something happens and the myelin sheath gets damaged, be it through an infection or an environmental process, we don't know totally the cause yet. We have lots of ideas and much of the research is going on about this. But when a portion of a myelin sheath gets damaged, the body tries to repair it, and then it gets damaged again and the body tries to repair it, and eventually there's a scar or a sclerosis. So that's why they call it multiple sclerosis. That's kind of a brief summary of it. So you found out at that time there was no cure. That can't be a fun thing for a 32-year-old actress.
No. Forget about actress. By that time, I didn't even want to be an actress anymore, By that time, I was trying to discover something else completely. But it wasn't fun because half of the time, I couldn't walk right. I couldn't talk right. That was freaky as hell. That was one of the things that kept on repeating in many, many attacks is that it would affect my speech. So I couldn't speak well, and I'm very talkative, I'm very expressive with my words, and it was horrible not to be able to talk or to sound the way I sounded. And when this part of the body would be affected, then swallowing becomes very difficult. I choked. Almost every time I swallowed, I had to choke, and that stayed with me. I don't choke all the time, but I choke a lot. It's like having lost some kind of ability, or I don't even, like the intelligence of swallowing goes away.
How about mental parts to it? Did you start getting depressed or anxious or?
Depressed. Every time I had an attack, strangely enough, while I was having the symptoms, I was fine. Like I had to deal with everything, so I was fine. And even if I wasn't looking very fine or being able to do things, mentally I was above everything. I knew what I needed to eat and what I needed to change and da da da. But the minute the attack was over, I would fall on my face, depressed for months.
Can't be easy to go through this. Did you have any support?
Well, I had my family and I had my friends. That's my support.
So are you getting, is this bringing back memories as we talk about this now?
Of course. How can I not remember?
Yeah.
But I'm fine.
Did you start looking, you were told there were no cures, but I would assume that a person like yourself couldn't just accept that. Did you start looking for cures?
Not for cures. It sounds, I wasn't looking for a cure as such necessarily, but life is very interesting. When I got this, when I got the diagnosis, from the very beginning, when I had my first attack, I was already a spiritual seeker, and I was looking for spirituality everywhere. And because I started getting into it so much, I also started getting a lot of, let's call it signs, or my intuition was very developed. And I started getting just guidance, inner guidance of what to do next. So it's not like, let me find a cure and I'm going to now look for a cure. I just kept on getting guidance, go look at this or eat this thing or trying things. I kept on just trying this way and that way and that way. And I did a lot. Remember, I was in Mexico, and Mexico was and is, but then was much more, I think. So many people were trying different things and offering different things. So just to feel better, let's say that I wasn't in the middle of an attack. Well, just to see what the next thing is, let me try this other experiment and these little shots and these little waters that I used to drink. Or, I just did so many things, big things.
Tell us about some of the actual things that you did in hopes of finding some relief.
Okay. So, by then I had moved out of Mexico City, and I was living in a town called Cuernavaca, which is south of Mexico City, the place where all the Americans go for retirement. Beautiful place. And I was living there because part of my process was leaving the city and changing my life. So the owner of the house, one day she sees me in my terrace. I wasn't in a good way. And she said, well, I have a friend that lives right here, and he's an incredible doctor, and he is also the spiritual guy, and you have to go there. So I went to him, and I'm thinking what to tell and what not to tell. First he did acupuncture on me, but he did acupuncture vaginally, which was very strange.
Yes, that's very strange.
I never heard about that. Never heard about that.
Mm-hmm. I've heard of it.
You have?
Yes. And there's certain healing arts, too, that I've been taught that has to do vaginally or, with that chakra of the body.
I had never heard of this before or since. Mm. And I can't tell you that it was painful or weird. I just know that the minute he finished, I broke down in tears. I was sobbing, and I am not the kind of sobbing girl. I'm not into sobbing, and I wasn't feeling that bad. It was just so, I don't know, I felt so vulnerable. I don't know what it was. So that was the first thing he did. But from then on, he plugged me through like IVs. I had all the colors of liquids coming into my body. There was vitamins, and they were bright yellow and bright orange and bright green and all kinds of every. I remember vitamin C, that was a very pretty color, and a bunch of different vitamins, and then minerals, and then chelation, and then there was something else that he put through my veins. So this was like almost every day to go to this place in the woods to get him to fill me up, fill my body up with the strangest things I wouldn't even ask anymore,
Until what was the strangest thing that he gave you?
For me, that acupuncture in my vagina, that was the worst.
Mm-hmm.
That was the worst. But from the things that, oxygen he put me once. Oxygen, chelation, and vitamins and minerals. That's what it was. But every day was a different thing.
They ever try anything like hookworm or pig blood or anything like that?
No, I had pig brain in a different guy, a different person. Years after that, I had a pig hypophysis and pineal gland implant under my skin of my arm. I had that 4 times.
It's
Baby
amazing.
Pigs. Baby pigs. They grow them for medicine.
Interesting.
Baby pigs. They decapitate them, right? Not in front of you, but almost. They bring you the head. They bring the doctor the head. They take out the pineal gland and the hypophysis gland. They put it under your skin on the side, on the arm. And supposedly, the way they explained it to me, your own hypophysis and pineal gland take a rest. And this, which is very, I guess the pig's molecule is very similar to the human. And
in many ways.
So according to them, this new, I'm thinking Hebrew, glands with the new information start sending information to my brain and regenerating all the glandular system.
Wow.
And did you get a result from that?
Not great. Not great, but I tried it. Okay. And that went with horribly painful injections. Horribly painful. Every day.
Did you ever get suicidal?
No. I never was that sick, Len. I was never that sick that I would get suicidal. But I hear from other people with MS that if I was in their shoes, I can get it. Right. I was never, thank God, that bad.
Did you ever come to the United States and have them look at you after the initial process and talk about things that might be new?
No, not at all.
Okay.
It wasn't in my world, I guess.
Okay. When did you move to Israel?
I moved to Israel exactly 20 years ago, and here I already was fine, by the way. By 41, I was already feeling very different. I was hardly ever having an attack. And I came to Israel newlywed with my husband. Mm-hmm. And because I was starting this completely new medical, medicine in Israel is very different from the medicine in Mexico. Here I have a socialized medicine. So I wanted to have a folder, how do you say that, a history somewhere.
Right.
So I went to the specialist of MS, and he ordered an MRI, which I resisted because I believe that whatever you believe is very, very important. As we know, placebo effect and all of that. So I knew that I didn't want to go and see a picture that would tell me, well, you know what, you really have a lot of horrible things happening in the brain, because I was feeling fine, right? Uh-huh. But, my husband and this doctor said, you have to have a baseline so that we know how you're doing here. So I did do the MRI, and I was very surprised that he said that I have very, very little demyelinization activity in the brain. That I actually have, he said, a very benign case of MS, and that maybe I will never ever have another attack.
That's great
to
hear.
Awesome. It was marvelous. I did have another attack after that. A couple of years after that, I did have another attack, but that was the last one.
And how long ago was that?
I don't know. I think like 15 years ago. I don't remember exactly. I have a thing with time that it doesn't stick with me, but it was like maybe 15, 16 years ago.
Have you had any Western medical treatment since you moved to Israel? Any type of treatment at all?
For this,
Yeah.
no. For other things, there are neurological, yes, but not for this. I haven't needed any MS thing. The only attack I had on a trip that I took to Mexico. So I was there. I did whatever I did there, and no doctors. Even though I respect I do respect medicine, of course. And I still, till today, I do take medication for other things, but not for the MS. Thank God, I don't need it.
Do we want to talk about these other things at all?
Do you want me to? I don't think that they're related to the MS at all.
All right, let's just move forward. So you had one career. Were you thinking now, after you've gone through all of this and you've moved to another country and you're feeling better, were you starting to think about either acting again or some other kind of a career?
No, what happened? No, acting never again. But no, that really is not for me anymore. No, when I started being sick, at the same time, I started assisting to a group that became a support group for me, that it was a group for people that wanted to study body-mind therapies. So at the same time that I was dealing with my first MS attack, I was also studying to be a body-mind therapist. So it was together. Actually, it was one of my teachers, the one that sent me for the big thing. See, all of these people were involved somehow in how I was treating myself. I was in a very avant-garde group of therapists. And they were
Back
all
in
into
Mexico.
they were all into very different approaches to healing, all of them. And so that's why I tried this and I tried that, because everybody was into something, and they would come and say, wow, I just found this other thing. Let's try it. All the colonics and all of that way before it was in fashion. At the very, very beginning, I had weird colonics, I mean, or this retreats where you would fast for a month or two. Health food, like really health foods, raw food, and the colonics and the cold and hot and steam and all of that kind of things that they are now pretty in fashion, But this is way before anything was in fashion. This was
interesting. Oh, go ahead.
No, I just was going to say that everybody looked at me funny because I was doing weird things. Now they're in fashion, but then they were really weird.
Yeah, I was thinking when a lot of people hear the word colonics and think that's weird in itself, but when you add the concept weird colonics, what would be an example of a weird colonic?
That's what I was going to ask.
I am going to tell you. Well, in the colonic world, one very, very classic is coffee enema.
Sure.
And it has to be organic and that. Now, I got into that because it helped my migraines. I suffered from migraines many years. Not anymore, thank God. There was one really awful one for worms or parasites. And this was warm milk with garlic.
Huh. Mm-hmm.
The minute that thing goes into your body, you start getting I was, how do I explain this? I was like getting hot flashes with wanting to faint.
Wow.
Just for a little bit of that thing into the body. I'm telling you, I tried everything and anything that would move me this way or that way. Did anything help? I don't know. I think that what helped was the decision of this is not going to kill me. This is not going to determine my life. I'm going to try. If my body is going to be my laboratory, they don't know. I will find out what's for me. And I wouldn't tell anybody do this or do that because you have to know your intuition, and your intuition is the one that has to tell you. And your inner guidance is the one that's going to bring, the universe's answer to whatever you need, which might not be for anybody else.
When did you know you were intuitive?
I think that is something that has been developing through the years. There's some people who have this incredible psychic power. I don't have that kind of thing. I just know that I knew what was right for me through that whole process. I really think that illness was what was my teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the dreams. My whole dream life changed. And now I started getting all this information in my dreams and past lives in my dreams. And do this and don't do that, and do this because of this and that, Awesome stuff. I'm telling you. In my book, I tell about one of the first dreams in which I saw this ancient woman playing guitar, flamenco guitar. And I knew that she was ancient, and I was terrified of her. And I know in the dream, this is my teacher. I know she is my illness, and this is my teacher. And I'm telling you, this illness has been my teacher.
This is why we interview people like you that have these magical medical transitions that understand these things. I mean, when we've had people that we've interviewed that have said, ovarian cancer was the best thing that ever happened to me. These kind of statements are just fascinating for us to hear, the way people in the human species can come through things like this. Christina, any thoughts?
Oh, so many.
Mm-hmm.
I love the journey that you've taken, Shuli. I think it's magnificent. And though you say that you don't know if any of those things had helped you, I feel when just listening to you, you were doing colonics, you were doing cleanses, you were doing raw food retreats. That's all about cleansing this magnificent instrument that we're born with. That I find most people, and Glenn, I think we both share the same thoughts, is, we take so much in life for granted. What we eat, what we put in our mouth, what we do with our bodies, like people who don't do exercise or at least get a certain physical level going. Everything that you've done, it's to me was on the path of not just healing one thing, it was healing yourself as a whole. And that's magnificent. I think that's really magnificent. And I believe that it's all these little pieces that make the whole and create the balance. I mean, look at you now. You're vibrant. You've got, amazing energy. And this is the end of your day too. After a long day, you're filled with energy and love, and we can feel your strength. It's magnificent. And you're such an inspiration for others. And we thank you for that, really.
Thank you.
Yes,
thank you for realizing that. Yeah.
So
it's incredible feedback. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would agree with all of that. And I always think a lot of times when I have something wrong with me, I do a lot of different work, as Christina knows, both Western and integrative or combinatorial, as I call it. And people always say, well, what helped you? And I always say all of it.
Everything, sure.
Everything helps. So, Shuli, when I introduced you and I mentioned you're a body-mind psychotherapist, a bereavement counselor, trauma specialist, you're a medical coach, when did all of this happen?
Well, I became a body-mind psychotherapist in Mexico after that group that I'm telling you about. I mean, it was a few years of working on that psychotherapy, body-mind oriented, okay? Which is body-mind. And then also there, I studied a little bit of hypnosis and NLP. So it became part of my toolbox. Then when I came here, it was now is the age of coaching. So I was trained as a life coach first. Then I was trained as a medical coach, which is different from health coach. It's medical coach, which is a model of coaching that is Israeli. And then I put it all together because I also believe that like with food and everything, it's about integrating. So I integrated everything together into what I do. And that's why I called myself Thera Coach, because it's Thera Coaching. Is also the kind of therapy that I'm doing now has also been evolving. I don't do body work anymore because that takes a lot of energy from me, and I don't have energy to lend. So even though I'm vibrant and I love what you said, Christina, the truth is that I don't have as much energy as I used to. So I don't do any body work, but I do psychoenergetic work. So I do tapping, and I do EMDR, and I do NLP, and I do these things that work with the energy that we are. Mm-hmm. But I don't touch and massage and all of that anymore, which I did do for years.
Okay. So you mentioned a few moments ago a book, and you have written your first book. First of all, it's called Hope Beyond Illness, correct? A Guide to Living Well with a Chronic Condition.
Exactly. And it's my second book.
Oh, it's your second book. What made you decide to, what was your first book?
My first book was a novel, actually, an autobiographical novel of how I met my husband through the internet when the internet was in diapers, and I came to live in this weird country, in this weird culture, and that's what it was. But seriously,
what was the name of it?
This is the first one. It's in Spanish. It's called loveatdesert.com.
Oh, that's a riot. So,
because it was through emails, yeah.
Oh, that's
and
very interesting.
And this one is.
So when did you get? I wanted to know when you decided to write your book, Hope Beyond Illness. What inspired you to that? I mean, clearly we know some of the things.
After being for a long time without any symptoms, it was also, the voice of spirit through somebody else. Somebody said to me, you should write a book that is called How I Healed My MS. And I said, yeah. And then I couldn't get it out of my head for a while. And then I thought, if anything, life has been so generous to me, giving me my life back and giving me a healthy life back. I guess that the least that I can do is put this on writing and see what happens, to help others. So what I did was, it's, vignettes of pieces of my life and my treatments or whatever. But that was just to get somebody going into the reading, I guess. And then it's about tips to help yourself heal, or tips to help yourself deal till you heal. That would be rather to deal well till you heal in the right sense of the word, because people, you can be in your deathbed and heal your relationships and your emotions, and healing has to do with much more than curing the body, right?
Yes, I like the way you say that. There's a lot of times that's very important in the work that I do as a medical guide, talking to people, especially with incurable things. You can still heal in many ways, Absolutely. And that's just as important. So what's the message in your book? I mean, obviously the title, Hope Beyond Illness, but if you had to describe it, say on an interview, what would be the message?
To not lose hope. That Christina, you were talking about all this concrete things like, the exercise and the food and all of that is so important. But we're not only that, we're not only the body. You do with your mind a lot of what's happening to you. You provoke it with your thoughts. You can change that. Your mind reacts to two things, to the pictures that you have in your head and to the words that you say and the self-talk that you do and the meaning you give to things. So my book is telling you, just do some tweaks, do whatever you need to do, and you will be able to heal the body if it was in your cards, because we also all die. So if you're not to die tomorrow in your fate or karma or whatever you want to call it, you can live better. Even if you have this diagnosis, even if doctors don't know what the hell you have, you can do something that is beyond give me a pill and take this away from me. So
that's
it's
beautiful.
Hope. It's I mean, as long as you have hope, you keep on looking for something. You won't give up. And I'm not talking about surrender, because surrender is important. But surrender is not giving up. Surrender is accepting what is and then let's change it. Then let's, create something different, because we're creators. We are creators, and we do create our reality with our attitude, with our words, with our intention. So I'm telling people, just keep on looking. Today I was in this whole health forum, and somebody said there, you just have to make the decision that you're not going to cancer, 4th stage cancer. Some person was talking about, it just was a matter of just making the decision. It sounds too simple, too simplistic, but it's true. You make the decision, and if you're open to it, if you're open to have a magical mystery life, things can happen, and they will happen, because the universe talks to you. It does talk to you. It takes you by the hand, shows you the way.
Do you find people with MS get in touch with you, or other diseases, they get in touch with you, and do you talk to other groups, support groups, about things like multiple sclerosis?
I like your question. For many years, I led groups in Mexico, especially of people with AIDS and with cancer, even here. MS, for some reason, this is a very personal experience. I'm not saying that this is the way it should be or would be everywhere. There's something about the groups of MS that I have tried to approach here that I felt that they don't like to have me. I look too healthy. When I talk about healing with people that have MS, they immediately say, no, there's no such a thing. You can manage your symptoms. That's the best you can do. Manage your symptoms. And I say, well, if I manage my symptoms so well that they're not there anymore, that to me is healing. Well, don't talk about healing. It's about managing your symptoms. So no, I don't work with people with MS. But I have a group. I'm now doing a program called Deal Till You Heal. And I have people with cancer and also with more emotional kind of problems. And I've had different illnesses, and I do what I can to help. It's really so personal. It's really has to do with how open the person is to connect. I think that if we're not aligned physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, it doesn't happen. And not many people are open spiritually, for example. Religiously, maybe. Spiritually, people have trouble with that.
Give us an example.
Of what?
Of spiritual versus religious.
I don't want to get anybody hurt here. I might not be very politically correct. Religion, in its essence, is spiritual. The problem is that then it becomes a building of do's and don'ts, of what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And this is the ritual, and this is rigid, and it should be this way and not that way. And where is the heart of this? Who knows? In Judaism, I don't want to talk bad. There's so many little things that don't make sense. But if you go and study it, you find that in the beginning of time, the original idea was an idea that is spiritual, but it's lost. People don't know why they're doing this anymore. And it has no meaning. If it has no meaning except being part of a people or doing what the church says, that is not going to be healing. That is not connected. Connected is opening my heart and opening my spiritual eye and being able to connect to what's right for me now in this moment. And that is spirit. And spirit speaks to us all the time, not only to illuminated people. It speaks to you and to me. It speaks to everybody somehow. Are we willing to open up and listen to that? Sometimes we don't like what it says. Sometimes we are not willing to hear that part of us.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. I think that was good. Christina?
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree that it's if we can begin to listen within and really connect. I totally agree with you, Shuli, on that it is a balance. And here on YHTV and Yoga Hub for many years, it's about the balance of body, mind, and spirit. And if one is off, there's no balance. So, you're absolutely right. And if we can break away from some of the boundaries that we are brought up with culturally and societally and religiously, and believe and be good people, period.
Yeah.
Right? Be good, loving people with loving kindness to ourselves and to others. It will emanate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it's so wonderful. I think how you're guiding individuals is on their paths. And as you say, they're also individual, and your work is so powerful. And again, you're dealing with, I heard you say that the MS community doesn't want you to be part of it at this point, but I do believe at some time you're going to have those individuals out there that is going to hear and see what you've done and say, I want to get a little bit of what she's doing.
It would be lovely.
And I think your book is going to help you to do that and reach those individuals that want to listen.
Yeah,
they
definitely.
say in Hebrew, from your lips to heaven.
Yes, love that.
From your lips to the heavens.
Part of the good thing also, I think, Shuli, is that from a Western science point of view, there's an incredible amount of research going on about multiple sclerosis, and the research on causes of it, whether it's from different geographical areas or genetics, and ways to potentially prevent it or to prevent more attacks from coming on. There's a lot of research in so many areas right now. New medications are in big clinical trials. So if something does come back for you or for others, there's a lot going on out there that's important. And I think that within the process of Western medicine always looking for the science and the genetics and everything, it's very important that Western medicine also takes the messages that you're giving to us, because sometimes the medication that we might give someone will work on someone who has the hope and has the spirituality, and it may not work as well on someone who is defeatist and surrendering and giving up. I commend you on all the work you're doing, and give you hope that if something does happen again. Do you think of this every day?
Not at all. I mean, now that I'm doing the book and I need to market it, I think of the book marketing, not about the thing. No, I don't think about it at all. I don't feel that I have MS anymore. For years, I haven't felt that I have MS.
That's
like
beautiful.
For years. I have other things. I am not a very healthy person in other instances. But MS, I really don't think that I have it anymore.
And does
that
the
was
work
also...
Go ahead. You just mentioned that you have other things. So I would assume that the work that you're doing with the MS, you're doing some of that work with your other things too.
And I just think that, maybe our passage through this life doesn't have to be about being in perfect health for everybody. I mean, I know that part of the work that I came to do in this lifetime has to do with illness. So I don't have MS anymore, but I have twitches or migraines or something that's neurological. And it's like it never goes away, something is going to, and then I'm going to be too old not to have things. So, or like in 10 minutes. So, so it's like, if this is something, if dealing with trying to keep my body healthy is part of my life lesson, it's not going to go away completely. I'm going to keep on always, my attention is on that too.
So we're coming close to the end of our show, and at the end we always ask for a personal health tip, and I'm really looking forward and fascinated by by your history and your story and the disease that you have to live with and the other things and how you've come through it and how you're helping others. I'm really looking forward to hearing your health tip today.
Okay. So my book is full of tips. It's about tips. This is my favorite tip. And you probably, this is my lately favorite tip. You probably saw, because it was populating the Facebook for a while, there's this documentary about this guy called Henry. Henry's story is called Alive Inside, a story of music and memory, of a guy that comes to a health seniors home where people are, Alzheimer's and dementia, and everybody's like completely disconnected already. And he gives everybody earphones with I don't know if it was an iPad or whatever it was, gadget, with the music of their youth. And they start listening to the music, and from being completely disconnected and scrunched, they start waking up and singing and moving and completely waking up. It's incredible. So this happens for them with Alzheimer's and dementia. What would it do to me? So I started asking all of my clients and all of my patients, I want to have, a playlist of the music of your youth that made you happy, not like the things that I used to listen in my youth that made me completely depressed, because that was the kind of girl that I was. It was about the boyfriend left me, not that kind of music from your youth. The one that makes you get up and dance. That one, the salsa, that thing. Okay, so you make a playlist. You put the earphones in your head, and at least for half an hour a day, you listen to music that made you happy and wakes you up. And then come to therapy with your music in your ears. And the mindset is totally different. You just face life with a different perspective. That's all. And I'm telling you, life looks and tastes and smells totally different. That's my favorite.
Beautiful. Shuli, is there anything that in preparing for this show and interview today that you wanted to really mention, but for some reason we didn't get to it?
I am totally into our conversation, so I'm not thinking of anything. I can tell you, guys, read my book. I know what. My book is something that is a new fashion of books. This is my marketing, but it's really worth it. It's really worth it. Stay with me. It's called Interactive. Have you guys known about this interactive books before? Because I didn't. It's awesome. You start reading, and you have on your phone, I give you instructions of how to download a little app that reads codes. And so you get to, you're reading in the book, the story, and then you get to a place in which I say, and now hear this video. In the video, it's either me explaining a tip, which can be, any kind of the many tips that I have in there, or somebody else, like this Bruce Lipton talking about something, and Lisa Rankin talking about placebo, all kinds of different experts, and so and also I have visualizations in audio. So you're reading, and it says, now listen to this. So you put you plug in your earphones, and you listen to a visualization, and that is a lot of fun. I'm sure that you haven't seen this kind of book out there, so I recommend it to you. Buy my book.
There you go. On that note,
get my book. On that note.
On that note, I want to say thank you, and I'm very grateful to our special guest, Shulamit Lando, for sharing her wisdom and experience with us, a very impressive experience. I would like to thank all of my teachers and my healers for helping me on my journey. I look forward to getting together with Christina, Yoga Hub, Magical Medical Tour, and Segovia as we search another quadrant of the healthcare galaxy, always searching for optimal health. So thank you very much, Shuli. We really appreciate all of the words. Until our next meeting.
Yeah.
I wish you all optimal health.
Yes. Thank you, Shuli, for a magnificent sharing at this time. And we know that you've inspired so many through the show. And yes, and Dr. Woolman, Dr. Glenn Woolman, thank you for hosting such a great show. And of course, we would like to thank each and every one of you for joining us in this new platform of education and information. We're grateful for your continuous support and look forward to hearing your feedback on how we can serve you better. You can connect with Dr. Glenn Woolman through his website, glennwoolman.com, where we encourage you to learn about his Metaphor Square Breath, or follow him on Facebook at The Medical Guide. Now, you can also connect with Shulamit Lando through her website, shulamitlando.com. And of course, we do highly recommend her book, Hope Beyond Illness. And it is really exceptional, with the codes that you can scan. And the beauty of this book, too, is with each chapter, there is a health tip, actually, which is right up our alley, right? It's how to put everything into doing as opposed to just reading. So it's really a magnificent book. And so we hope you have enjoyed this moment on YHTV and it has supported you or a loved one in some way. We invite you to take a moment and like us or subscribe to our channel. And we are always, again, grateful for any feedback, comments. Please type them into the box on the site or give us a call at 818-LETS-TALK. 818-LETS-TALK. Thank you. And until next time. Namaste.
Chronic pain, it turns out, has very little to do and very little correlation with tissue damage. And it has more to do with the brain mishandling the information. Either because of some genetic predisposition to pain or some early life predisposition to pain or psychosocial issues. The chronic pain is more associated with brain phenomenon than peripheral phenomenon. Now, there are obviously exceptions, and that is